Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are going to be taking a look at something that I think is really, really interesting.
Okay.
Um, it's the impact of the English Premier League on Ethiopia.
Okay. Yeah.
And we're going to kind of look at how this global, football craze is impacting everything from like local businesses all the way to how Ethiopians are connecting with each other online.
Right.
So even if you're not a huge football fan, stick with us.
Yeah.
Because this is a really cool example of how global trends can have these like really surprising and localized impacts.
Yeah, and what's so interesting is that Ethiopia's love for the EPL, it goes way beyond just watching the matches.
That's
It's
right.
really become ingrained in the culture there,
Yeah.
and it's affecting daily life in so many ways that you wouldn't really expect.
So our sources are painting this really interesting picture of Ethiopia's kind of EPL fever.
Right.
So like imagine like walking into a bar
Yeah.
or a cafe on a match day and the entire place is just buzzing.
Yeah.
People are cheering, they're debating, they're wearing like all the, jerseys and colors.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not just happening in a couple places. This is like all over the country.
Exactly. It's everywhere, and all this enthusiasm, it's actually turning into a real like economic boost
Oh, wow.
for these businesses. One study that we looked at actually found that some bars in Addis Ababa saw their revenue jump by 50% on EPL match days.
Wow. That's a huge number.
It really is, yeah.
So that's 50% more revenue just on match days.
Exactly.
I mean, and think about the ripple effect.
Right.
That's got to be more jobs,
Yeah.
more income for suppliers.
Exactly. It all trickles down.
Yeah, it's incredible how this passion for, this sport is like fueling this entire local economy.
It's amazing. And it's not just food and drinks either.
Oh, really?
So the EPL has also started this booming market for merchandise. So jerseys, scarves, flags, all that stuff.
Yeah, all that good stuff.
All that good stuff. Exactly. And it's opened up all these opportunities for entrepreneurs in Ethiopia.
Yeah. Yeah, I was reading about this one entrepreneur in Addis Ababa
Yeah.
who, I think he started this small business where he was customizing jerseys
Oh, cool.
with all these unique designs,
Wow.
specifically for EPL fans. And he said that he's like barely keeping up with the demand.
That's great. Yeah.
So it's crazy how a trend,
Yeah.
even if it starts halfway across the world,
Right.
can create these like amazing opportunities for people who, are really paying attention and being savvy.
Absolutely. It just shows that if you pay attention to what people are passionate about,
Yeah.
there's so many business ideas out there.
Yeah, for sure.
But the EPL impact goes way beyond, just physical spaces too.
Yeah.
It's really impacting how Ethiopians connect with each other online too.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense because everyone is on social media these days.
Yeah, of course. But it's more than just passively, scrolling through updates.
Okay.
Ethiopian fans are really active. They create content, they share stuff,
Wow.
and they're building this really vibrant community online.
So they're not just like watching highlights on YouTube or something like
No,
that.
they're doing their own analysis.
Wow.
They're debating tactics, they're sharing memes, even translating news articles that are in English.
That's really cool.
It's really cool. Yeah, they've created this whole little world online around the EPL.
That's so fascinating.
It really is. And it's not just them taking in the content from the UK. They're
Right.
putting their own spin on things and adding to the global conversation.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that.
It is really cool.
And so what are they using for this? Are we talking like Facebook, Twitter?
Yeah.
Is it like all over the place?
It's all over the place. Yeah, you've got Facebook groups with thousands of members. You've got Twitter threads dissecting every single goal, and even Instagram accounts that are dedicated to EPL themed artwork.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And all from Ethiopian artists.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's incredible how technology has allowed, all these fans, no matter where they are, to really connect and share their passion like this.
Yeah, that's so true. I'm curious though about the people who aren't as plugged into like the digital world.
Right.
How are they experiencing this whole, EPL craze?
That's where traditional media comes in, particularly radio.
Yeah, yeah.
So even though internet penetration is growing really rapidly in Ethiopia, it's still mainly in the cities.
Right.
But for people in rural communities, radio is still the main way to stay connected to the EPL.
Oh, wow. So radio's still king in some of those areas.
It really is.
I know in our research we saw something about this brat sport.
Yeah, brat sport.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that show?
Oh, yeah. Brett Sport is this hugely popular radio program in Ethiopia, and it's completely dedicated to the EPL.
Wow.
So they do match previews, live commentary, post-game analysis, and they even have segments where listeners call in and debate.
Wow, so they're getting like the full experience.
Yeah, it's incredible. So imagine listening to your favorite commentators breaking down, the latest Manchester United versus Liverpool game while you're out, like, tending to your farm. It's this cultural phenomenon.
That's really cool.
It is. And Brat Sport is a great example of how traditional media has adapted to stay relevant, in a world that's becoming so digital.
Yeah, to make sure that that EPL fever is reaching all parts of Ethiopia,
Exactly.
connecting everyone.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that Brat Sport itself is embracing the digital world.
Oh,
So they've got a strong social media presence, which lets them interact with fans, share snippets of their broadcast, even get opinions for their on-air discussions.
oh wow, so they're kind of bridging that gap between traditional and digital media.
Exactly. It's really smart.
Yeah, that's really cool. So it's not like radio or social media. It's kind of like this multi-platform.
Yeah, they work together.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that kind of interconnectedness is also reflected in how the EPL is influencing Ethiopian football itself.
Yeah, you mean like how young Ethiopian players are looking up to the EPL and how it's impacting how football is developing there?
Yeah, exactly. But before we get into that, let's just take a second to appreciate how big of a deal this is.
Yeah, it really is remarkable how a league that's thousands of miles away has become like such a big part of everyday life for Ethiopians.
Yeah.
And it's not just about like entertainment either. It's really shaping aspirations, influencing business decisions, and even changing how football is played at a very basic level.
Yeah, it really shows how interconnected the world is today, right?
Absolutely.
Like something that's happening, on a field in London can have this direct impact, on the streets of Addis Ababa.
Exactly. And speaking of impact,
Right.
let's go back to those like packed bars and cafes we were talking about.
Yeah.
It's not just the atmosphere that's exciting.
Yeah.
The economic activity is pretty amazing too.
Yeah, for sure. That 50% revenue jump is a pretty clear sign of just how much Ethiopians are valuing, their EPL experience.
Right.
But it's more than just watching a game on a screen, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about the social aspect, the sense of community that comes with being a fan with other people. Yeah, exactly. You got a lot of these places have really become EPL hubs.
Oh,
They've got these huge screens. The decor is EPL themed.
Yeah.
They even have special menus just for match days.
Wow.
It's like stepping into a little piece of England in the middle of Ethiopia.
It's like these bars and cafes have become like community centers for EPL fans.
Yeah.
It's where they come together to celebrate, big victories, commiserate when their team loses,
Yeah.
and just break down every single play with other fans.
Yeah, it's a really shared experience.
Yeah.
And it really strengthens those social bonds.
For sure. And that sense of community goes beyond just physical spaces too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We talked about all that online activities, remember?
Yeah.
Ethiopian EPL fans aren't just watching, they're creating.
Right.
We're talking fan pages with
Yeah.
thousands of followers, online forums where they're like debating tactics and player transfers, and even podcasts in
Right.
Amharic.
That's so cool.
So they're not just talking about the EPL, they're like building a whole world around it, tailored to their own language and culture.
It's really remarkable.
It is. And this digital space has become like a breeding ground for, Ethiopian football analysts, commentators, even comedians
Right.
who are using the EPL as this platform to share their perspectives and build their own following.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's really cool how this passion for the EPL is helping this new generation of media personalities in Ethiopia.
It is.
They're finding their voices, honing their crafts, and connecting with audiences who share their love for the game.
Yeah, and it's not just entertainment either. Some of these online platforms are really important for giving people access to information who might not have it otherwise.
Okay.
So think about those fans in rural areas with limited internet. They might rely on these online communities for mash updates, translations of the news, and even like tactical breakdowns.
Oh,
It's like this big network of sharing EPL knowledge.
it just shows that access to information can be so powerful, right? Especially when it comes to something like football that everyone loves. But it's not just about keeping up with scores and transfers, is it?
No.
This access to information is changing how Ethiopians think about and play football themselves.
Yeah, you're right. The EPL isn't just something to watch for them. It's like inspiration for how they want their own football to develop.
It's like they're watching the EPL and saying, we can do this too.
Exactly.
We could have a league that's just as exciting, just as competitive, just as well organized.
And these young Ethiopian footballers are watching their idols in the EPL. Players like Mo Salah and Sadio Mane, who are huge stars.
Yeah.
And they see that as a path for themselves. And that's leading to a big increase in interest in youth academies and development programs all over the country.
Yeah, it's like the EPL is this blueprint for success,
Right.
showing these young athletes that they can achieve their dreams.
Exactly. But it's not just about individual goals either.
Yeah.
The EPL is shaping Ethiopian football as a whole.
So how is that happening?
Well, local clubs and leagues are studying the EPL. You know how it's organized, its marketing strategies, its youth programs, even how it connects with fans.
Okay.
And they're trying to use those successful parts in Ethiopia. It's like a case study in how global trends can lead to local changes.
And it's not just about copying them.
Right, definitely not.
It's about taking inspiration and figuring out how to make it work in their own culture and economy.
Exactly. And all this learning and adapting could have a ripple effect on all of Ethiopian football.
Yeah.
Imagine better training facilities, leagues that are more competitive, and maybe even Ethiopian players making it to the European leagues.
Wow. Yeah. So this passion for the EPL is like a driving force behind the growth of Ethiopian football.
It really is. It's amazing.
But before we get too excited, I think it's important to remember that this isn't just a happy story.
Right.
There's some complicated issues and challenges too.
Yeah, you're right. We need to be aware that not everyone benefits equally from this. There are worries about economic differences, access to resources, and even the possibility of people being taken advantage of.
Yeah, that's a good point. But maybe those are conversations for another deep dive.
Yeah, definitely.
For now, let's think about what this means for each person listening.
So think about what you're really into, what you're passionate about.
Yeah, so what does this all mean for someone listening right now, even if you're not into football? This whole thing about the EPL's influence in Ethiopia, I think it has some pretty important takeaways.
Yeah, it really shows how something that seems kind of niche, like liking a certain sports league,
Right.
can have these huge effects way beyond what you'd think.
Yeah.
It impacts economies, it shapes communities, even changes how a sport develops in a completely different part of the world.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What are we really passionate about?
Yeah.
And what kind of ripple effects are those passions creating,
It makes you realize how connected everything is. Decisions that are made in one place can have these consequences somewhere else, and trends that seem far away can actually be shaping our own communities without us even realizing it.
Exactly. And it also shows just how powerful shared passion can be.
Right.
Think about the energy in those Ethiopian bars and cafes, the online communities, the dedicated radio shows.
Yeah.
It's that excitement that's driving all of it. The economic activity, the social connections, even the inspiration for young athletes.
Yeah, passion is contagious.
For sure.
And when people come together like that around a shared interest,
Yeah.
it can create something amazing.
So next time you see a bunch of people gathered around a screen cheering on their favorite team,
Yeah.
no matter what sport it is, remember, it might be more than just a game.
Right.
It could be like this little window into a cultural phenomenon that's shaping lives, creating opportunities and building connections across continents.
That's what's so great about exploring, right?
Yeah.
Digging deeper and finding these unexpected stories, these connections that make us think about the world in new ways.
Well, that's exactly what we do here on The Deep Dive.
Yeah.
We take topics that seem simple and then reveal all the complex layers beneath.
Right.
The ripple affects the stories that make you go, wow, I never thought about it like that.
It's all about being curious, getting new ideas, and really understanding how connected our world is.
So if you enjoyed this deep dive into the EPL's influence in Ethiopia, make sure you hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more explorations.
We've got a whole world of topics to uncover.
We do, and we can't wait to share them with you. Until next time, keep diving deeper.